All right, John Wick, Chapter 4. How many movie franchises can deliver 4 high quality installments within the franchise? Back to back to back to back to back. Not a lot. That's spoiler alert. That's the answer. You might point to something like Fast and Furious franchise that took 4 to really get its bearings, unless I'm completely cuckoo. Cocoa for Cocoa Puffs. 5 was really what kind of relaunched it and kicked it off back into this other realm, this other atmosphere. And even those movies, I think you would agree, aren't as universally or widely beloved and heralded as the John Wick series. We got 4 of these bad boys, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt that all 4 have met expectations and exceeded them. You know, I think a lot of people were probably expecting this thing to peter out. And judging by what a lot of the critics have to say, some of them think it's unnecessary. Not a whole lot, but some. And to them, I say, are you nuts, dude? You off your meds? Get back on your meds. Because this was such a fitting conclusion to this particular storyline. So with that, what's the synopsis? John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table, but before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off. Can't believe Nicolas Cage or John Travolta didn't make an appearance in this movie. Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe. Sorry, flat earthers. And forces that turn old friends into foes. And it is nuts, this little thing we call life, that we can have friends that turn into foes and foes that turn into friends. Well, what a twist. I don't want to say that that's happened to me recently, but it is like if you were to travel back in time and you'd say to your 17-year-old self, hey, this guy that you're BFFs with, it's going to wear thin after a while. Anyway, this little action flick is rated R. Released wide in theaters March 24th, 2023. Runtime of 2 hours and 49 minutes. And by God, every single critic to a frickin' T made sure to make note of that. How long it is, the runtime, how long it is. I'll say this about the runtime, and then that's that. Okay, we're going to put this puppy to bed. There was probably 1, maybe 2 sequences where I've been like, didn't have to be that long. Now, did it derail the movie? Did it ruin the movie experience? Nah, dude. Hell nah. So, and these critics, I assume, are full-time. They get paid to watch movies. You got paid to watch John Wick 4? I had to pay. You got paid. And you're complaining about getting paid to watch one of the best, I got ahead of myself, one of the best 4th installments in a franchise ever. We talked about Fast and Furious, the 4th one was like, okay, Vin Diesel's back in the mix and there's something there. And there was enough there for them to say, let's greenlight Fast 5, bring in The Rock, and then we'll go straight into uncharted waters. Try and name a 4th. I mean, there haven't been many, because usually we like the set of 3. 3 is the magic number, right? And people can tolerate a trilogy, but they can't tolerate a quadrilogy. Is that what you call this John Wick franchise? Which, by all accounts, despite what people have said, both involved with the production and outside the production, I'm not so positive that this is the last installment. Call me crazy, but there's a lot to chew on there. There's a whole lot to play with. They've expanded this universe incredibly over the past 10 years. And sky's really the limit, because it seems like they just keep going and keep going and keep going. Can it keep going without Keanu Reeves? Well, that's, we'll see. I feel like I just ruined this review. But you don't know. If you've seen it, you know. But if you haven't seen it, you don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, just like all the other movies, this one's directed by Chad Stahelski, mostly known for his stunt work prior to the John Wick franchise. He's directed all 4 John Wicks, and in the works for this guy, a up-and-coming talent. I don't even know if you could say up-and-coming or emerging. It's like, we get it. We know who you are, dude. You're on the big sage now, and you can tell because of the lineup that he's got going in terms of what's coming down the pipeline. Rainbow Six, Kill or Be Killed, Vice City, and Highlander. I didn't watch the original Highlander. I don't know if that's Two Men Enter, One Man Leave. I don't think that's it. But each one of I'm familiar with Rainbow Six. I think it was a novel by Tom Clancy, and then it became a video game series, and it just makes sense to make a movie at this point. Kill or Be Killed just sounds cool. Title alone sounds cool. And Vice City, I mean, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, great video game. Don't know if that's what this movie's based on, but I don't know how you go wrong with Vice City as your title. So, and he did another bang up job here. The stunt work does not feel like it's rinse and repeat. You know, I'm sure there's a certain formula or template he likes to use, but I didn't get the sense that like, oh, I've seen this exact fight before. You know, I think there are certain trademarks and signatures with every fight sequence. You know, but it's inherent to the character. John Wick, this is how he operates. This is the way he does things. But in terms of like, there was some criticism about it, people becoming numb to it, because some of them tend to be longer than your traditional standard fight scene or fight sequence. I never really got that sense. So, I mean, very curious and interested to see what his track record will be outside the John Wick universe. I have confidence in him, and I hope you do too. So, who writ this bitch? Who writ it? Who wrote this flick? It was written by Shay Hatten, Michael Finch, and Derek Kolstad. Shay Hatten wrote Day Shift, that Netflix vampire movie with Jamie Foxx, Snoop Dogg, and Dave Franco. It's like one of those Netflix movies that is sort of like in the same realm as Extraction, in the sense that biggish names, not necessarily the most original of stories or plots, but just the cast, the acting, and the visuals really drive the success and the satisfaction derived from the movie. So I recommend Day Shift. I thought it was a cool vampire movie. Had comedy, had action. What more can you ask for? Army of Thieves and Army of the Dead were the other two that Shay wrote. I would say I think that Army of Thieves was more well received than Army of the Dead. I liked both of them. I liked the stylization. I thought it was perfect. I think the Army of the Dead was more popcorn entertainment. Army of the Thieves was a little bit deeper emotionally. So I guess if you had to pick one, I don't know that you need to see Army of the Dead to watch Army of Thieves, but I would say Army of Thieves, that's a strong recommend for me, dog. And then Army of the Dead, yeah, I'd throw that on. And then he also wrote John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. Michael Finch wrote Predators, 2010's Predators, which basically is considered by many, prior to the release of Prey on Hulu. What was that, last year, the year before? Maybe it was, last year. Prior to Prey, I would say a lot of people would probably have Predators as the number 2, right below Predator, the original 1987 release. I would say Prey leapfrogs Predators and is below the original Predator. I believe I said that in my miniature review. I don't know that I did a full one. But yeah, Predators kind of breathed new life into the franchise, because I know that you have the AVP entries and it's like those are big major letdowns. But Predators really got to what made the first one so awesome. The breadth, the roster of characters, each of one had a backstory, each of one was had resonance. So yeah, if you haven't seen Predators, well, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Okay, get on it. 2017's American Assassin. I think I tried to start this movie and it got off, maybe I'm misremembering, but it got off to a hot start. And I'm wondering if American Assassin is the one with Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart, or if it's with that dude with the dark brownish hair, kind of chiseled. Either way, I've been meaning to watch that start to finish. Not exactly I don't think it's wowed anyone, but I think it's better than your average movie. I just don't think it's like anywhere near top echelon, but you're kind of sensing a pattern here with Michael Finch, American Assassin, and then Hitman Agent 47. based on the popular video game. I don't know if this is the one with Timothy Olyphant or there was a second one. I can't believe they made 2 of those freaking movies, both like not related to each other, unless I'm crazy, which, I just picked up my prescription. So my therapist and my psychiatrist say I'm improving. And then in the works, Michael Finch, in the works, Hansel and Gretel, Witch Hunters 2, dude. Witch Hunters 2? Didn't think that I didn't watch Hansel and Gretel, Witch Hunters 1, although I thought it was a very cool idea at the time, because I think this came out in like 2010, 2011, 2012, when they were basically, there was a stretch there where it was like, we're just going to like remake these old tales and we're going to put this gritty comedic twist on it, like Snow White and the Huntsman, Hansel and Gretel, and I thought it was all cool at the time, and I didn't see any of them. I was just like, why didn't I see any of them? And I think it was because the reviews initially on the original Witch Hunters one were pretty poor from critics, but I think the audiences were a little more forgiving. And so I'm now, knowing that he's got that in the works, I'm tempted to go back and watch the first one. First one starred Jeremy Renner, and was it the lady from How I Met Your Mother and from Avengers, and her name is, damn it, blanking. Rachel? No, I can't rest until I know, and it's gonna kill me. She played Robin on How I Met Your Mother. Kobe Smulders. Wow, I was not even close. I think that's the duo. I don't think it was Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And then Derek Kolstad, the third of the trifecta, the screenwriting trio. He wrote the original John Wick. He's got credits on 2 and 3. He also wrote Nobody, 2021's Nobody, which I didn't review because I was on a hiatus, with Bob Odenkirk, which essentially I think a lot of people initially viewed as, oh, this is a spoof or a parody of John Wick. And in some regards and respects it was, but the action sequences were, I don't want to say on par with, because it makes it sound like they were almost identical, but like in the same vein as John Wick, and not just as impressive, but impressive. Not like, oh, this is an obvious spoof of John Wick action sequence. Like you can tell, okay, they're inspired by John Wick action sequences, but this is pretty good on its own in its own right. So, and it's interesting that he wrote Nobody, and then there's a character in this movie called Mr. Nobody, and it was hard for me to shake. I'm gonna be honest. Once my mind latches onto something, it's like, give it back, drop it. Kolstad also wrote Die Hard with Kevin Hart. I think that was like on, what was it called? What was that friggin' mobile only entertainment network? Went belly up, and then Roku like basically bought their entire library. I think Die Hard was part of that. And he also wrote The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episodes of that bad boy, which I think a lot of people said was one of the weaker, if not the weakest, Disney Plus Marvel TV shows, MCU TV shows. If it is, not by much. So I don't want anyone to think that it's like a shitty series. I thought it was pretty cool. And to be honest, I think the two, Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie, make a pretty dynamic duo. I dig their vibe. So those are the writers, those are the directors. Who's in this mother effing cast? Well, you have Keanu as John Wick, who's now hunted by the High Table, aka Jardani Jovanovich, or Baba Yaga, however you want to pronounce it. Donnie Yen as Caine. He's the blind High Table assassin, old friend of John Wick. You might know Donnie Yen from Ip Man, Blade 2, Rogue One, Mulan, and Triple X 2, which I can't believe. If you were to name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies, you would have thought I've seen one. I guess I did see Blade 2. Did I see Blade 2? I guess I did, but it's been so long. So yeah, but it's like name 5 movies. There's, how do I not have, Rogue One. I saw Rogue One. And I guess I saw Mulan. Neal, what are you talking about, dude? You just need to wipe the slate clean and go back to block 1. Ip Man is something I gotta watch. I just keep seeing it critically acclaimed by critics and audiences. Why haven't I seen it yet? Blade 2, I can't remember. For some reason, I remember Blade Trinity over Blade 1 and 2. Rogue One, duh. That's such a good movie. Mulan, I believe. I don't know if it's the animated movie or the live action one. Probably should have written that down. And Triple X 2, I did not watch. I saw Triple X 1 in the theater with my pops. I want to say that Triple X 2 did not have Vin Diesel. They had someone else, and then they brought Vin back for like the third one. Could be wrong about that. You just everything I say, don't immediately think it's right or correct. Just be like, interesting. Just acknowledge, put it in the bank, but know that don't go invest in it. Don't put any stock into it. Bill Skarsgård is Marquis Vincent de Gramont, a powerful member of the High Table whose position is challenged by John Wick. You might know Bill Skarsgård as, I want to say, Keith in Barbarian. Barbarian is a movie that I hope to review at some point. Mwah! Such a great horror movie. It has Justin Long in it. I can't remember the actress's name, but Bill Skarsgård is probably one of the better early parts of the movie. Just his whole run in that movie is just, whoa. Just your emotions are all over the goddamn place. He was also the Pennywise freaking clown, dude. It 1 and 2. And he was in Deadpool 2. And I'm telling you, I don't know what it is, but why can't I remember most of Deadpool 2? I remember so much from Deadpool. And it's not like Deadpool 2 was trash or anything. It was pretty decent, pretty good. I know Cable was in it. Not Pierce Brosnan. Oh my God, dude. Josh Brolin. Get a life, Neal. So I think I need to rewatch. I got to watch Ip Man, and then I got to rewatch Deadpool 2. You got Lawrence Fishburne, the Fish, as I like to call him, as the Bowery King, a former underground crime boss who was left for dead by the High Table. I mean, the High Table leaves a lot of people for dead. Let's just say that. It's now sponsoring John Wick. John Wick, brought to you by the Bowery King. When you need pigeons or rags, Bowery King is your #1 source. Okay. Hiroyuki Sanada as Shimazu Koji, the manager of the Osaka Continental Hotel in Japan, and an old friend of John Wick. I don't know if you're sensing a pattern here. A lot of old friends. Where have you seen Hiroyuki Sanada? I mean, this dude, I assume he's going to get a Lifetime Achievement Award if he hasn't already. It's a crime against humanity. This dude's awesome. Every freaking role this guy is in, he just crushes it. He's just got the look, the delivery, awesome sauce. You might remember him from, he played the Elder in Bullet Train, another movie that I fully intend to review. Vlad Tanaka in Army of the Dead. Hanzo Hasashi, a.k.a. Scorpio in Mortal Kombat, which him and, what's the other guy's face? What's her face? Scorpio and Sub-Zero. That storyline in the most recent Mortal Kombat movie was pretty legit. In addition to, I think it was Luke Cage, who was just a menace. He played Musashi in Westworld. If you remember, if you stuck around Westworld for its run, he was in episode or 2 when it's not Neil Long. Is it Neil Long? No, it's not Neil Long, dude. Then Thandie Newton went to Eastworld. Where it was all the samurais and the ninjas and the whatnot. So he was like the head honcho there, which you want to talk about missed opportunities? Why didn't we get to see more of the worlds? Like that was so cool. They only give us like just a taste. It's like there were so many cool worlds that they could have gone through that they only touched the surface, I feel like. Anyway, and he was Akiko in Avengers Endgame. That's another movie where it's like, I remember coming out of the theater and being like, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen. And then I don't think I've seen it since. I think I maybe watched it once when I was doing all the MCU in chronological order in terms of like story chronology, not when it was released. So I think I remember it. I watched it then, but that was also like in the deep recesses of COVID when I was pretty much I was out of it. I think a lot of people were. Shamir Anderson as the tracker, aka Mr. Nobody, bounty hunter pursuing Wick, who the actor got started in 2010. He did a lot of TV work. If you're familiar with Sci-Fi's Winona Earp, which I never watched it, but I had a job where we had to upload videos for that series to YouTube, and that's how I learned about it. But he played Agent Xavier Dawes in that series. He was Michael Adams in Stowaway, that not so bad Netflix movie with Anna Kendrick. I think it got shit on a lot, but it's like you're going up against like Gravity, Interstellar. There's been a lot of great space astronaut movies of late. So to have Netflix release that and be okay. Is it better than Life? Was it Life with Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds? That's close. I would put Life slightly above Stowaway, or a little bit more. Yeah, I'd put it higher than Stowaway. I don't know what the deal is with the tracker, Mr. Nobody. But like I said, I just constantly kept thinking about Bob Odenkirk. I was just like, they couldn't give him another name. Like it just, every time they say that, I just immediately flash to Bob Odenkirk doing Kung Fu. And then Lance Reddick as Sharon, concierge at the Continental Hotel in New York. Died a week before the movie opened. I think it was on St. Patrick's Day. The movie was dedicated to him. He passed. I remember trying to search and refreshing and trying to find out how he died, because he was only 60, I believe, and looked healthy. There was his eyes were a little bit discolored, which I think it can be a symptom of a serious health condition, but he just looked like he was in shape. He was fit. He just looked like, for 60, he looked pretty damn good. And it turns out he passed due to a coronary heart disease, or coronary artery disease, caused by the plaque buildup in the wall of the arteries that supply blood to the heart. This actor was probably best known for his role in The Wire. And I never saw The Wire. I saw season 1, I think, maybe into season 2 of The Wire. One of those shows that I just get shamed every time I say I haven't seen the whole thing. Just shamed. That and The Sopranos. Like, luckily, I guess, quote unquote, I went ahead and finally binged the entire Sopranos series one summer. But The Wire is something that I don't know. But I remember him from the show Corporate on Comedy Central, where he plays like the head dude there, and he can do drama, he can do comedy. So just a huge loss for the acting community, because like he just seemed like such a cool dude that had such range. But Rina Sawayama as Akira, Koji's daughter and concierge, the Osaka Continental Hotel. This actress is also a pop superstar with over 400 million plays on streaming services. It's crazy that you can do something like that. It's a pretty huge major accomplishment, but it's just never really makes it to our side of the planet. I get it. The planet's huge. Like, I tried to explain how the Earth is round to my daughter, who was like, yeah, but why is everything flat? Mm-hmm. So I get it. It's a big place, but you'd think news would travel, and I would have known about this lady beforehand. But I'm also completely aged out of caring about a lot of shit. So apparently she loves clothes from the 1990s, and her wardrobe is full of slip dresses and bucket hats, and her power accessory is a choker. Sorry, what was that last part? Choker, eh? Barely knew her. As Beavis would say, boing. Okay. Scott Adkins plays Killa, the head of the German table, and an individual who has one thing in common with John Wick. They have the same enemy. He is, if you watch the movie, he's the big fat fatty with the gold teeth. And to be honest, a little TBH, I know there are a lot of funky, interesting, weird, unique characters in the John Wick universe. This is the one where I was just kind of really thrown off. Just like, I don't get what is happening right now? He turned out to be a really cool character that ends up having an amazing fight sequence with John Wick. But at first blush, I was just like, this feels really out of place. Ian McShane returns as Winston Scott, the manager of the New York Continental Hotel and friend of John Wick. I mean, who isn't? Clancy Brown portrays the Harbinger, a high-ranking operative of the High Table. Clancy Brown has got to be one of the top character actors of all time. Also one of the best voices of all time. He was the voice of Mr. Krabs on SpongeBob SquarePants. He was in Shawshank Redemption as one of the prison guards. He was in Starship Troopers as a general or a lieutenant who's just doling out words of wisdom left and right. And maybe I'm spoiling this, but I wouldn't be. I don't feel like, spoiler has a negative connotation. If this does ring true and this is actually comes out to fruition, like it happens, I would not. I don't think you or I or anyone should feel bad about that being spoiled. Because it's kind of a, I don't know, I'm probably not the only one with this theory, and maybe it's subconsciously bled into me, osmosis style, and I just didn't realize it after reading it somewhere. But for a hot second, I thought Clancy Brown as the Harbinger was future John Wick, as in John Wick from the future, and really there are only a few kind of clues or nods that would make me think that. One is they're both missing the ring finger on the same hand. I think it's the left because it's the one that he would wear this wedding ring on. That's the ring. Well, yeah. And the long hair, right? Facial hair. I think they both have facial hair. I think they both have long hair, same length. And you could see, is it possible that Keanu Reeves, if you aged him enough, that he could look enough like Clancy Brown, if blah, blah, XYZ. I don't know why I think this, but I vaguely remember someone somewhere saying there's no limit to the John Wick universe, and that includes time travel. And so that right there, combined with everything I just gave to you prior to that, makes me think I'm not completely ruling it out. I don't know. So anyone who thought they were spoiled by me saying how they're going to do the universe without Keanu Reeves, maybe I just reeled your ass back in. Natalia Tena portrays Katia, John Wick's adoptive sister. Marco Zaror plays Chidi, the right-hand man of the Marquis de Gramont. Georges Joujou appears as the elder, the man above the high table, and Bridget Moynihan appears as John's late wife, Helen. So we start the movie off with Keanu in the underground world with the Bowery King, and he's punching a pole or a board that's like wrapped in rope or something, and he's getting like super bloody knuckles. And I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover, right? And I haven't trained for shit really in my life. I wouldn't call that training what I do, but that can't be good for you, right? I don't think, is that a viable training method to just, I know like in Rocky, he goes in the meat locker and he's punching the frozen slabs of meat that are basically like concrete. I guess it is. Yeah, it has to be. But in my head, my logical part of my brain is like, but aren't you fucking up your knucks to the point where like you won't be able to actually clench your fist and throw a punch? Like, isn't that the most important part? The best ability is availability. And like, so, I was just curious and interested about that. It's like, I guess it makes you tougher mentally, physically, but it also like, I don't know, physiologically. So Wick goes to Morocco, kills the elder, the only individual above the high table. And Winston Scott and the concierge are rung up by the Marquis Vincent de Gramont, played by Bill Skarsgård, who scolds Winston for his failure to assassinate John. If you remember John, he basically has let John kind of slip through his grasp multiple times because he's just a good dude. There's a lot of talk about rules and consequences, and there are a lot of rules in this universe, almost as many as Vince Vaughn has in Wedding Crashers. But there's a lot of like Keanu Reeves saying rules, and then Ian McShane going consequences. Or McShane going rules and Reeves going consequences. So yeah, rules and consequences. And pretty decent life lesson right there, right? Pretty good moral of the story. Like when there are rules and you break the rules, there are consequences. It's called Society. Read a book. To punish Winston, de Gramont strips him of his duties as manager, has the Continental destroyed, and executes Sharon. And eventually, I think later on down the line, I think when he's talking to Keanu Reeves and he has people wondering why the Marquis left him alive and shot Sharon. He said that he left me alive to show I'm a coward or a turncoat. And then I think it's Wick says, well, which are you? And Ian McShane says, aggrieved, which is pretty powerful. Because it's like, that's a big time setup question. Well, which are you? And it's like, what is he going to say? Oh, I didn't think he would say aggrieved, which you might think you know, but I had to look it up just to make sure. Means resentment for unfair treatment. I got to say this right off the bat. Bill Skarsgård, well, it's not right off the bat. We're fucking almost 40 minutes into this goddamn thing. But Bill Skarsgård did a phenomenal job with this character. But even better than his performance were his friggin' outfits, dude. I mean, the suits, we're going to get into the suits a little bit later on. But like the Marquis suits in particular were just like kept one-upping each other. Insane. And it's like, how can you not feel a certain way about this guy in these suits? You know, I've never been a huge fashion guy, but it's like, you know, I think people in the fashion world are a little too into, you know, and you could say the same thing about me with my freaking sports, dude. Everyone's got their thing. I get it, but like, even I, as like a fashion ignoramus, thought these suits were unbelievable. Marquis travels to Paris and enlists Caine, that's the blind assassin, who I was getting Ken Jeong vibes from. Can I say that? Like I couldn't take him seriously for the first few scenes. And it's because I don't remember him in Blade 2 and in Mulan and at XXX2, and I never saw Ip Man. So it's like I saw this guy and I was like, this dude, like Leslie Chow in The Hangover vibes from this guy. So it was like, this is an assassin and this is the guy but as I'm saying that in my head, I'm thinking to myself, they put this dude in this movie for a reason and he must be such a badass. And yeah, he was. I do feel like, I don't know, maybe they could have done a little bit more in terms of his fight sequences. Like his fight sequences were so amazing, but I feel like I wanted more. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just like, I guess it was so good, they left me wanting more. There you go. So Caine kind of is like, no, thanks. But the Marquis is like, well, we're going to murder your daughter if you don't do it. So you got to kill John Wick. So she's outside playing the violin, which apparently in this movie, that's all she does is play the violin on the stairs, which good for her. Good on you. But John ends up taking refuge at the Osaka Continental, run by his friend Shimazu Koji. And the Marquis assassins, led by Chidi, arrive along with Caine to kill John. There's a scene where in the hotel lobby, big, huge, massive hotel lobby, the crew of the Marquis assassins flood that area. They're all there. They then look up and they're just surrounded by all these archers. The archers then are shooting the arrows at the assassins and are unable to take pretty much any of them down because the assassins are wearing these suits that are like essentially suits of armor, but they look like men's fashion suits, business suits. Why can't the archers shoot them in the head? It's just like, you guys got to be better than that. They're clearly, I mean, I'm pretty sure there were way more of the archers than there were dudes. If you just go like team up, be like, hey, you take this side, take the right side, left side, like we got this. So those kind of scenes can have the potential to take me out of a movie. Like I was watching the Indiana Jones movies and there was definitely one scene in each of Raiders and Temple of Doom, where it's like, what? Like there's all you guys and there's just him. You're like literally 5 feet away from him. You can't shoot him. But the suits, and this is what I'm talking about, the suits all look good, I guess. But it's still hard for me to believe. And it looks silly. I'll put it this way. It looks silly when they're running and it's like close range fire, whatever. And they have to like hold their jacket, their jacket flap up at their head so they don't get hit in the head. And it's like, or you could just wear a helmet or a mask or like protective headwear. No. Okay. But I always thought that looks silly. It's just like, and maybe that's intended to get a chuckle out of people, but I don't know because it just looks so goddamn silly. On his way out, John Wick fights another wave of assassins, followed by Caine. They're interrupted by a tracker pursuing John for a contract, nicknamed Mr. Nobody. And Marquis then tries to contract Mr. Nobody on his own, and the tracker finds the funds to be insufficient. So this is kind of the scene where it's like this is where we're supposed to like the tracker. Like, okay, this is their appeal to us and say, we need you to like this guy because he's not all bad and he's got a sense of humor. And look, he's kind of messing with the main top antagonist villain. But his negotiations felt a lot like the negotiations that like a pro athlete would have. Like the Saquon Barkley contract fiasco is we're in the midst of that. And so, he was offered 20 million. The tracker was offered 20 million and he said it isn't enough, but 23 million is. It's like at that point, you're like, 3 million is really going to do it. And the entire movie, I'm thinking, okay, he's trying to hit some number, but that number must have some sort of significance. And I don't think there was, the entire movie, I was waiting for the revelation that he needed a certain number, hit a certain number to do something big that was very, means a lot to him. It's meaningful. But we never got that. I thought that was kind of a misfire. It's like, yes, okay, you're reading too deeply into it, Neal. He was just fucking with the Marquis. Okay, that's one reading. But the other part of me is like, it would have been cool if he is trying to hit that number because that number is something meaningful that he said he was going to do for someone, mother on his deathbed, that kind of thing. Caine ends up killing Koji. Kira escapes, but is like, oh man, my dad. And then, like I said, Caine's sword work and how he stabs people was so quick. It was like a fucking, I don't even know if a bee is that quick. Just like scorpion, maybe, where it's like whoosh, so quick you don't even see it. You don't even know you've been hit. That's what his sword work reminded me of. And it also was like sort of like Wolverine's titanium claws. It's like that ability to move so effortlessly and swipe, and you think, oh, like he didn't even touch him. And then it's like, no, he actually just his entrails are everywhere. Just, oh, watch that. So Wick ends up returning to New York, meeting with Winston at Schrone's gravesite. And we finally, John Wick gets his opportunity to get out and earn his freedom. He has to challenge the Marquis, but he needs the backing of a family. And since his membership to the Rosca Roma was revoked in Parabellum by Ms. Angelica Houston, aka the director, he's now got to go back to them and be like his adoptive sister, Katya, because Piotr was murdered by Killa. And so John's trying to convince her that he needs membership, and she like basically wants to hang him and is trying to hang him when he's like, I will kill Killa if you. And so she's like, okay, that would be revenge. That would be avenging my father's death. So yeah, brother, let's see what you got. So he goes to kill Killa, and I gotta say the card game that they play is, as I mentioned, one of the sequences that was most likely too long. Like, I don't know that we needed that kind of buildup and anticipation, and maybe they were going for a humorous effect here, like ha ha ha, like we led you down this path thinking in youth. You knew it was going to happen, but you thought something else would happen, because why would they actually do what we thought would happen? That kind of thing. And like, haha, isn't this funny? Because it's exactly what you thought. To reveal that the Killa, the fat fatty with the gold tooth, is a cheater. It's like, well, duh, dude. Was there anyone who thought he was not a cheater? Raise your hand. Okay, now leave, please. So yeah, that was a bit weird. So then Wick and Killa then fight in the nightclub. And this is where I was like, wait a second. So here's the other, it's not even a hot take. It's just an interesting thought that probably not that interesting, but this is where I started to think, oh, this is a video game, because they are kicking the ever-loving shit out of each other in the middle of this nightclub. and 0 people are reacting. Like all the dancers just keep on dancing the entire time. And I wrote down, like, how high on drugs do you have to be to see that a guy get capped in the dome and not immediately shriek or run away? And so I think some other people have reviewed the movie and said that those are NPCs, non-player characters. They're just background characters that aren't, you can't control them. They don't react. They're just there. So that kind of makes sense. But so John, and also like these fight sequences are getting more and more over the top, which is a good thing, right? The fact that they're going over the top and we're buying it and we're liking it and we're loving it. It's not like, oh, this is over the top in a bad way. But there are certain moments where you're like, wow, what a journey we've been on. Because there was a time where John Wick could take a couple of kicks to the ribs and be down for the count in John Wick 1, but he can fall off of like a 3-story balcony and fall flat on his back on concrete and just be like, oh, that sucked, and then roll over and get up. Like, and you know, even there's a scene later on that we'll get to that was just like, well, this is like next level. But yet in the 4th one, that makes sense. If they went direct to this in the 2nd one, you'd be like, all right, they've completely lost their marbles. But the fact that they've built to this, it's like our tolerance has gone up and up and up. So John kills Killa and presents the gold tooth as proof to Katia, who brands John's arm with a Ruska Roman crest, enabling him to formally request a duel with the Marquis. And the Marquis requests that Winston requests that the Continental New York be rebuilt, with him reinstated as manager as part of the terms should John Wick win this duel. I got to say this, and you know, I've never been branded. Okay. Never had a brand. And even the brands that I have seen, I think it's mostly dudes that are in that one fraternity, Omega something. If you're an Omega, you have like that horseshoe kind of tattoo and those things. Cause I remember seeing them in a lot of football players and seeing it and being like, man, that did not come out right. Like that just, were you moving a lot? Did you not ice it properly? Like it just does not look good. And sure enough, like this brand here, like, is there a brand that looks good? I guess that's my point. Like brands, it just didn't look cool or even intelligible. And that kind of threw me off. I was just like, I thought that would be a lot cooler. And no, it's like, well, maybe horrifically burning your skin to try and have it like boil and settle in a certain shape. The human body is not really up to that task. It's a miraculous thing, this here bod. Not this particular bod, but bods in general. Back in Paris, the Marquis and Wick decide the parameters of the duel. It's moderated by the Harbinger, and that's when Marquis nominates Caine, who's reluctant to fight in his place. It'll take place at sunrise at the Sacré-Cœur, and the Harbinger informs John that he and Winston will be executed should he fail to appear on time. Bowery King arrives in Paris to give John a weapon and a new ballistic suit. And I gotta say this, is it illegal to have more armor? Like, is that illegal? I'm curious because I just don't understand why. This is where the rules and consequences, it would be nice to know a little bit more about the rules. And maybe I missed it. There was like an exposition dump where they had mentioned, okay, the suit can do X, Y, Z, and we allow the suit because of X, Y, Z. But you can't cover this and that and this and then the other. Like, are his balls like, By the way, the movie being like a video game, there was a whole sequence, which was it in a hotel? I think it might have been in a hotel where Wick is going through and they have the overhead shot and you can see like, basically you can see like the floor plan of this apartment and he's just going through and it's one long continuous shot. One of the best, if not the best sequences in action movie history, in my opinion. I'd say top 10. You got like T2, the on the freeway highway, or in the that reservoir, is that what they call it? Whatever that thing is, with the truck, that vehicle sequence. The Matrix, again on a highway. That whole, I think it was Matrix 2 or 3, where they're on the highway and just wreaking havoc. But in terms of like non-vehicle related action sequences, This has got to be one of the better, coolest shots. One long continuous overhead. You can see him making his way from John Wick room to room, and just like shooting here, punching here, flamethrower. Fuck yeah. That was by far the best. The Marquis attempts to prevent John Wick from arriving at the duel by placing a $40 million contract on his head. And that's when Wick has to fight off hordes of assassins on his way to the Sacre Coeur, including Mr. Nobody. But the latter stops hunting John Wick after he saves Mr. Nobody's dog from being killed by Chidi. To which I say, is John Wick the ultimate dog guy / dog lover? Like, and also, what if dogs didn't exist? Would this franchise exist? Like, if he had a cat and they killed the cat, would he go to these lengths? I don't know. But yeah, that dude fucking loves dogs. And I love dogs too. I'll be honest. Caine aids Caine, old buddy, old chum, Caine aids John in fighting his way up the stairs. By the way, that stairs, I mean, Jesus, I know I just said that overhead video game style shot / sequence is one of the better in action history. This is a great, I guess what they would call set piece that felt like a video game. How many times, I mean, listen, I haven't played video games in a very long time, but I was born and raised and grew up playing video games pretty much for the first 19 to 20 years of my life. 21 years, okay? It was just nonstop video games. And that stairs sequence felt very much like a video game as well, where it's like, okay, I figured out this level. I've gotten to that next level. I've gotten all the way to the end, but I forgot about this last thing. And I go, boop, 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 and you just have to start over at the beginning again. Prove me wrong. I'll be here all night. But when John Wick falls down the entire, I mean, this staircase, bigger and longer than the one in Joker, whatever staircase that is where he's dancing on the stairs. John Wick was falling forever on these stairs and it got all the laughs. Like, and I don't think anyone was laughing and saying like, oh my God, how bad this movie is. I think everyone was on the same page and laughing because it was like, I can't believe they just did that. In any other like action movie, that just doesn't happen unless it's like I've said, this movie and the franchise has really towed a line between spoof and parody, almost, where it's like the action is so good that you forget that this kind of humor, it usually does not mesh or marry or is not pulled off with such a panache as like John Wick. So amazing. And they did, I don't think they had to do it, but it was like, that's such a John Wick thing. It's so perfect. And we've been trained for this moment. And yet, even when that moment arrives, we didn't see it coming and we still laugh. And it doesn't mean that you know what I mean? So Mr. Nobody ends up killing Chidi, and the dog pees on Chidi's head. And that got the second round of laughs. And that's, again, I'm an overthinker, right? I overanalyze. And I think if I wrote that, I'd be like, that's just, is that too much? I don't know if I would have put it in, but like, that's the beauty of John Wick, is that it will have all the elements of a serious action movie, but then it does not lose the fun of a lot of this stuff and the simple pleasures in life. Like, we're not going to try and get too cute with what we're saying or how we're saying it or the jokes that we're making. And sometimes it's so simple that it's exactly what the doctor ordered. It's not like, you know, why go above and beyond when it's like, listen, we just had so much tension. There was a climax. The audience is probably like, their heart's racing. And it's just as simple as a dog peeing on a dude's head. Not just any dude's head. Chidi, who I think a lot of people were not rooting for. That guy was universally hated. Soup to nuts, A to Z, head to toe. So John and Caine narrowly reach the summit in time for the duel. They have the dueling pistols, 10 paces. I guess it's 30 paces, right? 10, 10, 10. Yeah, 30 paces maybe. And so they're expert marksmen. And so they end up wounding each other in the arm with the first shot. They then have to shorten their paces again by 10 each. And John's wounded in the shoulder. Caine is wounded in the lower abdomen, which I think a lot of people, having watched Reservoir Dogs, would know. Lower abdomen, the stomach, is like the most slow, painful death. Excruciating. So lower abdomen must not be stomach. Because if it's stomach, that guy's fucked. Right? And spoiler, but he's not fucked. So they go another 10 paces. And with the third shot, Caine shoots John in the lower abdomen. And John falls to the floor. The Marquis stops Caine, asks for the pistol, and with the bullet, assuming he has won the duel, wants to personally execute Wick for the final round. But as Ian McShane, as Winston Scott points out, oh, what is the quote? I don't want to butcher it. You guys deserve to hear it word for word, and I'm going to give it to you word for word. All right? I'm not going to shortchange you on this. I'm not going to paraphrase. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm going to hunt down this friggin' quote. I'm going to find it. It's going to be glorious. I'm going to find it. I can't type, but I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. It's going to be so good. John Wick 4, quote, bullet. I think it was something like, he has one more bullet, asshole. You arrogant asshole, or something like that. It was essentially that. Listen, I know it's not the same. I let you guys down, but hey, you get it. He has one more bullet, you arrogant asshole, or something like that. Arrogant prick. Which is like, again, from a Winston Scott, from an Ian McShane, at that moment, you're probably expecting something a little more like classy, elegant, fancy, you know, some kind of vocabulary that is reserved for, you know, Winston Churchill fans. Like, it just seems like he would go there, and for him to say, you arrogant prick, and it's just like so good. So yeah, John Wick shoots Marquis in the head. Harbinger declares Caine, his daughter, free from the high table. Winston is granted reinstatement, the Continental rebuilt, and John Wick his freedom. And so John, who's wounded, goes, and it's now, you know, it's sunrise, right? The sun's coming up. Beautiful view of the landscape in Paris. He's on the stairs, and he reflects on his marriage and his life before collapsing on the steps of the church, seemingly dead. Seemingly, okay? Seemingly. Jesus. If you tuned out, tell your friends who tuned out. Premature. So after Winston is reinstated as manager of the Continental, he and the Bowery King attend John Wick's funeral, having buried him next to his late wife, Helen. There was an exchange when the Bowery King, played by Lawrence Fishburne, first arrived in Paris, and they were I want to say they were in a canoe in a canal. It was very gondola maybe, and they're in an abandoned subway tube station, and that's when Bowery King gave him his guns and his suit, ballistic suit, and forget where the conversation was going, but they said, you know, basically John Wick, how do you want to be remembered? You know, when you die, what do you want on your tombstone? And he gave it some thought, and he said, loving husband. And so at this funeral, on his tombstone, you see loving husband on his tombstone. And then on Sharon's tombstone, you see friend. So, and it's, I forget where I think I was listening to the Whiskey Ginger podcast with Andrew Santino, and he was talking about, who was he talking with? Riff Raff? Might have been Riff Raff or Logic, or was it just a guest? And they were saying, you know, eventually, you know, you're going to get to a point in your life when you're like a grandfather, great grandfather, and you're going to be boiled down to like a sentence when people talk about you. And it's going to be like, yeah, I used to tell jokes. Like, you could be like the world's most famous comedian, and it's like explaining it to your grandchildren who are just young and, you know, don't know a damn, don't know anything, ass from elbow. That's all they need to know is I used to tell jokes, right? So that's essentially what I guess if you want to take that road, that line of thinking, you know, you're to be reduced to a word or two or a phrase, like, oh, how reductive. But That's how John Wick wanted to be remembered, loving husband. And so that kind of hit me in the heartstrings. It's like, fuck, I was a loving husband. I'm not a loving husband anymore. And so how am I going to be remembered? A lot of thoughts about legacy and there were times where I would lay in bed and I'd be like, what if, my then fiance or wife died? Like, what would I do? How would I get my revenge and stuff like that? Yeah. I got a pretty active mind, you guys. But in the post-credit scene here, Caine goes home to reunite with his friggin' violin-playing daughter, who has 0 lines, and is approached by the vengeful Akira. So it's like you think Caine gets out of it scot-free, but that actually is one of the more twisted post-credit scenes. There's another movie that I want to review. It's called The Call. I think it's Korean, South Korean. And that post-credit scene is just like, just rips your insides out your body. And this one is almost to that level where it's just like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, stick around for the post-credit scene. So what do the critics say? I hear you. All right. You don't have to shout. 94% of all critics gave it a favorable review with an average rating of 8.1 out of 10. Top critics, 89% of top critics gave it a positive review with an average rating of 7.7 out of 10. I'm more towards the all critics side of things. I would put this above an 8.1. I would go as high as 8.4, maybe even an 8.6, dude. Maybe an 8.8. It's in the mid to high 8s for me. Considering it's a 4th installment, probably as close to a perfect conclusion that you can really get for a movie like that. We'll get through. I pulled some reviews from some top critics to show you like the positive and the negative side of viewing this shit. And it's like, the people who are negative, it's like, but are you just saying that they should not have made the movie or that they should not have finished the storyline? Because it wasn't really finished in the third one. The critics' consensus was that Chapter 4 piles on more of everything and suggests that when it comes to a well-dressed Keanu Reeves dispatching his enemies in lethally balletic style, which that's a great point, and that's a callback to Volume 3. Or not Volume 3. Jesus, Guardians. Chapter 3, Parabellum, where he that's where most of the Ruska Roma train their assassins in ballet school, right? That's how the Russians train assassins. They make them ballerinas. There can never be too much. And I agree. I mean, the word that kept popping up in many of these reviews was relentless. And it's true. It's just, it refuses to bow down or give up. And no matter what your expectation is, it's not just the action on the screen, but it's also like we're unapologetic in who we are, which is refreshing. It's just like there might be people that scoff and roll their eyes at some of this stuff, but we really sincerely appreciate and love this kind of stuff, this kind of work, and we're gonna go out with a friggin' humongous bang, dude. Dwight Brown said that JWC4 is an elaborately choreographed, gorgeously crafted slaughterfest, a bloodthirsty spectacle, a circus of scoundrels fighting to the death in the most gracefully violent ways. Fucking poetic right there, tell you that much. So Dwight Brown, spot on, dude. Clarice, hello, Clarice. Lawfrey from the UK said that John Wick Chapter 4 commits so nobly to its self-seriousness that it almost borders into camp. And yet the franchise possesses both the self-confidence and the ingenuity to earn its boldness. That's what I'm talking about. Mamma mia. That there is it's not like really gooey cheese, but there's a cheese factor to a lot of this stuff. But its ability to not completely devolve into something like that and take the low road and really go cheap in that respect, you have to applaud that. Like I said, it's able to balance that line, walk the tightrope, and keep you invested in this on an emotional level, but also realize like, okay, there is a silliness to this, but treating it with seriousness. Very interesting. Yin and yang tugging there. Linda Merrick. With characters able to dodge bullets left, right, and center, the film is an homage to the classic martial arts genre with a sprinkling of old Hollywood westerns where protagonists never seem to run out of ammunition or ways to stay alive. Friggin' bingo, dude. I mean, this is essentially, I almost feel like they like mashed up Quentin Tarantino's movies from Quentin Tarantino's career. Like they basically took Kill Bill and they married it with like The Hateful Eight, or what's that Western? It's just like martial arts in the West. Westworld meets Eastworld. My God, dude. So many things are coming together. It's amazing. This is what it sounds like when worlds collide. Owen Gleiberman of Variety. So chapter 4, it feels like the first John Wick movie that wants to be a Clint Eastwood spaghetti Western. It's like Sergio Leone crossed with John Woo as seen in Times Square. I mean, like, dude, East meets West. It's just so good. Now, some of the negative reviews we're going to get into. Mixture of positive and negative. But Felipe Freitas said, by trading brains for bullets and characters for puppets, the director made the worst possible choices for this exhausting fourth chapter. You know, he had a 1.5 out of 5, which is just outrageous. Kevin Mayer of the UK said it's essentially a Jason Statham style shoot 'em up that thinks it's a Christopher Nolan epic, and I don't think you could be any more wrong about that. What, I mean, I guess in saying Christopher Nolan epic, he's referencing the Batman trilogy, I guess, because I don't think Christopher Nolan when I see this movie at all. That name just does not come to mind. Jason Statham style shoot 'em up. I guess a hint of that. You know, I just don't like Jason Statham and John Wick are just, I don't really have them in the same bubble. Well, whatever, dude. 93% of verified audiences gave this a favorable review with 4.7 out of 5 average rating. 92% of all audience gave it a positive review with a 4.6 out of 5 average rating. And I gotta say, I'm fucking right there, dude. Yeah, bingo. 4.6, 4.7, you nailed it. One reviewer said, chapter 4 might run a little long, but when the action is this good, who's complaining? And that's the key here. A little long, like a little. By how much? 5-10 minutes, maximum 15 minutes. I just think they made such great use of everything they had going on, and it all felt valuable. Maybe you could have cut a scene or two, and I don't think anyone's batting an eye, but it's like the scenes that they included and had in the final cut, the theatrical cut that we all got to see, every single one was good. Personal anecdote time. I went to see this opening weekend. It's now mid-June, okay? I'm a little late on the review. My B. I went to the high noon showing down the street at the movie theater down the street, and I had to pick a seat that was closer to the screen than I would have liked. It was not out of choice, but all the other seats behind me were taken, but I wanted to be centered as possible. And the thing with being as centered as possible when you do reserve a seat like that is that you run the odds of sitting next to someone who also is a loner going solo. And that person might get a little freaked out. And I think that's what happened here. Because I sat down and it's like, dude, there's so many other seats. And this is what the guy must have been thinking. What are you doing, dude? There's so many other seats here. Why are you sitting directly next to me? I picked this seat so I wouldn't be near anyone. Now here you are. So the dude next to me gets a little fidgety. And I'm like, okay, he's uncomfortable with the fact that I've picked this seat. And I'm sorry, but I wanted to be as centered as possible. So eventually he gets up and leaves like right before the movie starts. Great timing. He's gone for a while. I was like, wow, did I really bug this guy out that much that he's willing to just throw in the towel on this movie before it even starts? Like, should I move over one just even though it's not my assigned seat? Like, you know, you're a 42-year-old man. Okay. I know there are rules and consequences according to Mr. John Wick and Mr. Winston Scott. That feels like a rule you could bend. I figure, did he go to complain to the theater staff? Is he claustrophobic? Was he upset by the size of my popcorn bucket? Because it's like, why would one human need all that popcorn? And I can't tell you No matter how many times I've been in the movie theater and how many times I've ordered a large popcorn and how many times I've ate it, every time I eat it, I think I am crunching this too loudly every time. And I think everyone can hear me and everyone's pissed. Again, therapy, psychiatry, we're improving. He did return to his seat 15 minutes into the movie. He ends up leaving his seat again and again. He 2 or 3 times, and granted, 2 hours, 49 minutes. I mean, possibly a rookie move that you're drinking soda and lots of liquids. Something like this, you got to cut out the liquids. All liquids. Just go all popcorn. Really block it up. And then his buddy showed up, sitting on the other side of him, and would relay what he missed every time he came back to his seat. I was like, business idea. And I think they do this in some theaters. I mentioned this before, where in some theaters, I forget, I don't know the logistics of it, which makes me think that it doesn't exist. But there's either an app independent of the theater where you are, or the theater actually provides this at the urinals, where if you're in the middle of a screening, you go to pee, it shows you or tells you what's going on as you're peeing. So you don't need your buddy to tell you what happened when you return to your seat. So if that's not a thing, I just invented it. I already have filed the copyright and trademarks. We just need a name called Pee Break. Miss it, caught it. I don't know. I was in a weird movie. I was in a weird mood following that movie. It just got to me. I think it was the loving husband part. Inscription on the tombstone. Would he have been a loving father? Is loving father the one that's going to go on my tombstone? This old bean, this old brain likes to snowball, y'all. Just go down a very dark path and like to project way into the future. But so I'm sitting there in my car and I was just taking a beat, right? And it was like kind of cloudy, kind of rainy. And it was just like, it had matched the same tone and filters as the funeral in one of the final scenes in the movie. And so that's when I was just like, I'm starting to like get in my own head. And I see my buddy has texted me multiple times and he's saying he's looking for my advice. And why? I don't know. I give horrible advice. So why would you take advice from me? Like, it's not going so great. So he says, hey, I was waiting in line to vote. Some guy started making fun of my shoes. And so I defended maybe I stood up for myself or defended myself. And the guy threatened to stab me. And so I had to leave the line. I was like, okay. And then he said he was in a convenience store and he tried to buy a Gatorade and another guy threatened to stab him. And I was like, do you perchance have a stab me please sign anywhere on your person? Like, is that visible to others with knives? And I've heard stories about how he's gone to the bar in college. He'd go to the bar and people wanted to beat him up and they would try to. And sometimes they would. Not his fault, especially when he's outnumbered. And I'm over at the bar trying to buy shots for my high school crush. No big deal. And I've been with him when it's like another guy just trying to like get violent with him. It's just like, what? He's just this guy. Now, true. And I wrote this back to him. I said, I'm really sorry that happens to you. And it's unfortunate that sometimes perception is reality. And also that people, jump to conclusions and, have these thoughts and decide to act on them without any kind of verification or certification. But I was like, but I did want to fight you when I first saw you and first met you. Yeah. So I don't know if it's your cologne or the pheromones, the natural pheromones, but you need to look into it. But it was just tough coming off that movie, coming right into that. It's like, oh, my buddy is receiving stabbing threats nonstop. So I was in a weird spot mentally after that. So what does the future hold for John Wick and the John Wick franchise? Well, according to Wikipedia, in August of 2020, Lionsgate CEO John Feldheimer confirmed that a 5th film was being developed alongside John Wick Chapter 4. While it was initially intended to be shot back-to-back with the 4th installment in March 2021, Lionsgate opted to delay production and move forward with just Chapter 4 first. Keanu Reeves has stated that he will continue making sequels as long as the films are successful. Reeves and McShane will reprise their respective roles as John Wick and Winston Scott in the upcoming spin-off film Ballerina, which I think Angelica Houston, aka the director from Parabellum, will be in. And it will star Ana de Armas as ballerina assassin Rooney Brown, replacing Unity Phelan from Parabellum. Fuck yeah, dude. I mean, yeah, I can't not like that anymore. Like, I can't not like that. That's just, it's good. It feels good. I like that. Like that. But then later on, Stahelski, the director, said that Chapter 4 is the last one for a while. In our minds, Keanu, quote, in our minds, Keanu and I are done for the moment. We're going to give John Wick a rest. I'm sure the audio. I'm sure the studio has a plan. If everyone loves it and goes kooky, then we'll take a quiet minute. So they do have, initially just first gut instincts. I can't see a studio just completely shutting down this franchise because the main director and the star, like, when has that ever stopped a studio? I mean, the wise move is to like try and lure them back in some way, because I think without them, it's a risk, big time risk. But it feels like this installment was grooming the tracker, aka Mr. Nobody, played by Shamir Anderson, as the heir to the throne. Like, he's the guy that's going to be the protagonist that we're going to pull for in the ensuing John Wick movies. Whether or not you call it John Wick, I don't think you can anymore. I don't think it's one of those things where it's like the Batman and, like, you know, that was the insinuation at the end of Dark Right Rises was Dark Right Rises. That is, I think it was banned on YouTube due to nationalism. I don't know. The Dark Knight Rises, where we see Joseph Gordon-Levitt enter the Batcave and rise, and it's like, oh, he's going to assume the mantle of Batman. I don't think that's what we're seeing here, where it's like Shamir Anderson or the tracker, Mr. Nobody. Although, I mean, John Wick, that's not his name. It's Jardani Jovanovich. And Mr. Nobody doesn't have a name, so maybe he assumes the mantle of John Wick. Oh my God. I just did it in my head just now. But it feels like that's the way they're heading. And there also is the Continental series that's coming out, correct? The Continental John Wick TV show. Yeah, the Continental, from the world of John Wick. The Continental is a chain of hotels located around the world that function as a neutral territory for members of the criminal underworld. They are frequented by many hitmen and notorious murderers. Created by Greg Coolidge, Sean Simmons, and Kirk Ward. Stars Mel Gibson, Colin Woodell, and Nung Kate. Katie McGrath as the adjudicator. Peter Green, Jessica Lane, Adam Shapiro, Jeremy Bobb, Ayamade Adigan, Saleh Garnett, Ray McKinnon, Ben Robson, So I think that's going to be an HBO Max series. I don't know what streaming service that's going to be on. Ballerina. Yep, I gotta add that to the watch list. Action, crime, thriller, spinoff. Yeah, it doesn't say. I would have to assume it's going to be on Max. But Greg Coolidge is known for Ride Along, Employee of the Month, and Sorority Boys. Interesting. Interesting. That's as a writer. And then as a producer, yeah. Whoa, okay. Sean Simmons, who wrote 2 episodes of the School of Rock TV series, which I do not remember. Awkward Mr. Pickles, which is a wacky animated series on Cartoon Network, Adult Swim. So far this is interesting. And then Kirk Ward, who is known for The Island and The Fan, Zombieland, 10 Items or Less, The Onion Movie, Tenacious D, and The Pick of Destiny. That says him as an actor. I guess he's a producer and writer for The Expendables. So you can see my confusion here, because it's like I'm not seeing a ton of like action TV series credits for these dudes. So that's why it seems like it was a little bit of a mismatch, but I don't know. I'm sure it'll do well. But like I said, will it do well without Keanu Reeves? I don't know.